Hey everybody, it's Dean Jackson. Welcome to the More Cheese Less Whiskers podcast. We're here in Winter Haven, Florida, world headquarters. And today we've got Eric Anderson all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Hot Atlanta. It's hot right in Florida right now. Is it hot where you are?
It is hot. It's fine right now, but yesterday was ridiculous. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to chat, Eric. I want to hear everything. I want to hear what you're up to. And I know just the basics, but it'd be good to kind of have you tell the Eric Anderson story a little bit and then what we're going to focus on today.
Okay, cool. So I grew up in San Diego. I was interesting ninth child to a single mom.
Wow.
So when I was born, I was obviously a whole lot going on. So I was put up for adoption at birth, but I was being abused in the adoptive homes. I was removed from the adoptive home. Became a ward of the court, and from there lived in group homes and foster homes until I aged out of the system at 18.
Wow.
And so from there, but what was interesting is somebody taught me, my adoptive father taught me a very simple magic trick as a kid. And I fell in love with it, started street performing. So when I was going through foster care, that was kind of my guiding light, gave me something to focus on. And I wanted to be a professional magician. And so after foster care, served a brief stay in the United States Air Force, worked a couple of jobs. But then I just kind of got started. I started initially with street performing, booked some engagements that way.
Yeah.
And I ended up moving to Atlanta, try to make this dream come true. And there are some, hardships along the way, a couple of challenges. And then I figured out the whole thing was about marketing. And then once I figured that out, I just kind of ran with it. And so initially started just performing and helping companies sell their products at trade shows, sales meetings.
Nothing draws attention like a good magician, right? That's something.
Yeah. It actually is the best thing in that environment. And then a friend said, Eric, you got to share your story about foster care. I said, nobody wants to hear that mess, but she stayed on me about it. So then I transitioned into speaking and became known as the magician with a message. And it was all the same stuff, same marketing, just called myself something different essentially and told my story and a couple of solutions. And then after that, I started working with other people on building their speaking business and the whole thing. But I still go out, perform for clients.
That's great.
Produce. Still go out and do that, have a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah. And so do you travel to do that, like to go to all the conventions, or do you do it mostly in Atlanta when conventions? Atlanta's a real convention place, right? People.
It is. It's slowed back a little bit, but everybody thinks you're better if they got to fly you someplace. So, I've been all over the place doing it. Once I had kids, I started to kind of tone that back a bit and started to think about, okay, what are the other options I could use to still do what I'm doing and do what I love to do without all the travel. And still love the travel. It's fine. It's not, but it can be a lot, especially with kids. And so then that's, with the seminar business, the consulting, all of that stuff.
Awesome. So how does the business work now? What's your primary focus? How does it, and what can we focus on today for you?
Okay, cool. Well, the primary focus now is I'm really focusing on the teaching other people the business of speaking. Okay. Right? Sharing their story and message. And I do speaking for newbies. Right. So I have domains and all that stuff attached to that stuff. And just, showing people that are brand new to it. Hey, here's how you go out and get paid speaking engagements, how to go out and get checks. Yeah. Also how to, if you want to go do the speak to sell model. So I just show them everything, right? Just show them the whole thing. So from there, I lead them into it's been a free seminar. I'm testing a paid version of that now, but a free seminar, 2-day seminar. And then from there,
live or on Zoom?
Live. I've done it on Zoom. Okay. Yeah. So during the pandemic, I started doing it on Zoom.
2-day free seminar that people can come to. Okay.
Yep. And during the pandemic, obviously doing it on Zoom. And so started doing live again, like last year, actually a couple of years ago, really. And I do it right now 4 times a year, looking at, doing that a little bit more. And I'm testing a few different, whether they get a product, right? Online course type of thing, whether they get that and private coaching. People love the private one-on-one.
Of course. Yeah.
Aspect of it. And then the next phase is, because I'm trying to figure out how to get them results faster. So just doing a real intimate, like live event for everybody, like a 4-day event where they go in, they get the pictures done, they get a website, they get everything, with all the marketing materials, all of it. And I haven't done that last part yet, but yeah.
Right. So when people come to the 2-day, event. You're giving them the overview, you're showing how everything works, and then they have a chance to join. What? How does that?
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you offer them? Is it a certain amount of time course, or is it
so it's
working with you one-on-one?
Correct. So they either have, and I do the application process, right? So they can get the course, right, online, just do self-study, just do all that stuff on their own. And then if they want me to work with them, I tell them, look, just put a P on the application and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
And I just want to see where you're at, see what's going on, see if I can even help you, see if the course is best or the one-on-one is best. Mm-hmm. And pretty much everybody wants the one-on-one. It's 10,000. Mm-hmm. So it's obviously things higher and lower. And I meet with them every couple of weeks. And I just do those meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays. And yeah.
That's great. And how long do you work with them?
Well, okay, so here's the guarantee. I say, look, I work with you, and I tell them, assuming they're taking action and actually doing stuff, right? Because there's people that pay money and just, I can't do anything about that. But if you're taking action and doing stuff, I'll work with you, even though we may get off our schedule, but I'll still communicate with them. I'll work with them until they make at least 3 times their investment back.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And some people do that immediately in a couple of webinars. Like we're able to get through that immediately. And then we just get through everything else that they want to get done. So.
Well, that's pretty exciting. So if you were to if we look back at the people that you work with, what's your success rate on that? Let's say that if they make, how many of them, out of the last 10 that you've worked with, if you kind of back test it, got to the 3 times ROI?
Okay, so the last couple have made their investment. Well, I'm sorry, made their investment back plus a little bit more in the first webinar.
You mean the first webinar that they did, or
correct
in their first webinar? Right. Okay.
Correct in their first webinar. So because I've changed the guarantee a bit. Initially it was they make 10 times.
Oh wow!
Because I know if they do it, they could do it.
Yeah.
And it was they got to make the back. Well, they got to do it in 18 months, right? So the initial, don't know the numbers, but
well, I'll tell you the reason I'm asking you, right?
Okay.
So that part of the thing, clearly you're confident that you can get the result. Clearly, you've got a track record of people who have taken your training and gotten the results and are, how long have you been? Who's your longest running case study kind of thing of people that you've worked with?
Probably the longest one is 3 years, just under 3 years. It's closer to a year and a half,
okay,
technically. But yeah, she's been around for about 3 years.
Right. And what you're teaching people is you're building for them an engine that's going to get them in contact with people that they can monetize an audience kind of thing, or get hired by speakers, right? And they're going to use the knowledge that you work together with them on. They're using that 3 years later. That information is the formation, the engine of what drives the revenue that they're bringing in, right? What they learned by working with you, by implementing it and doing it over a period of time, they've gotten many multiples of the money that they spend with you. So part of what really is important is to be able to document the success of the people that you work with, both for the people who you're doing it with to really confirm to them that it was a good investment, that they've made money on that investment, and also for people coming in behind them that they can see. It's almost like the way I do these things, we document everything month by month with people on the cumulative amount of revenue that they've made. So if you look at it, let's say somebody, has on their path to 100,000. Let's just use the 10 times as the thing, because eventually everybody's going to get to 10 times that if they're implementing it, right? So you just show the path that if in their first thing they made $10,000, then they did it again and they made another 10,000, that's 20,000. And then 2 months later they did 30, 40, 50. You're starting to see that $10,000 one-time investment that they made is compounding on the return of it. And so what's important for you to know, and the reason I ask if you back test it, for yourself, it would be good to know how many people actually get the result, and to look at the people who don't get the result and look for clues as to why they didn't get the result. So when we were doing this I have a company called Money Making Websites, and we do websites for real estate agents. And one of the things that we were doing, we were selling them, one at a time to individual realtors. We would go through the whole process of, they would call, they'd ask about the website. We'd take them on a tour of it, show them how everything works, make the offer to them. Maybe they'd like to talk to a couple of our clients to confirm that everything is the right thing. But I was documenting all of the results that people were getting, and they were getting, in the first year, 8, 15, 20 times ROI on their investment. And I started thinking, the question that I was asking myself was, what would I do if I only got paid if they got the result, right? So I first silently started asking that question, and then looking back. And in that process, I identified what would have happened if that had been my offer with the last 10 people that came through. And there were a couple of people who didn't get the results. And I started recognizing, why is it? Then I went all the way back. I was looking at everybody, and I started seeing patterns of why people weren't successful. And the things were, if they were in a town that was too small, that it was all driven by Google AdWords. So if you're in Atlanta, like our client, Zach Pasmanic, I don't know if you know Zach, but he's a big real estate agent in Atlanta. Atlanta, there's lots of search volume, right? But if you are a real estate agent in Warner Robins, there's not going to be the same amount of search volume as there is of somebody looking in Atlanta. So they weren't getting the same traction that somebody with a bigger population base would. Or it was people who were brand new real estate agents who didn't even know what to do if they got somebody who wanted to buy a house. And so I started looking at that, and I started setting parameters for who I was going to work with. And I decided, the thing was, I started inviting people. If you live in a town of more than 20,000 people, you've been in real estate for at least 1 to 2 years, you personally work with buyers and sellers, you've got time to work with at least 2 new buyers a month starting next month, you're friendly and coachable, and you can keep a secret, then reply to me, tell me a little bit about your business, and I'll be picking people for the pilot program next month. And it was a game changer, because when I got really clear on who is the person that's the best for me, that gave us the confidence then to be able to make a more compelling offer, So I look at it and I wonder, for you, have you noticed any patterns? Are there people who don't have success, or that you could recognize ahead of time, or do you, part of your application process, or you're choosing them, are you vetting that kind of thing of how likely they are to get the result? Or sometimes, if people are paying in advance, and I'm not saying that you need to switch to where people can pay, over the pay after they get the results. I'm just putting that out there as a way of getting more confidence in your conversion abilities when you actually know what's going on. If you can identify and nip it in the bud that these people are not likely to be successful, if you look at it, we would find out there's probably 20% of the people just never get out of the gate. Like you say, people buy the course and they just don't do anything. That happens, but but not if they're working with you one-on-one. It seems like, they'd have to be
Yeah, well, I know with the one-on-one, so I'll help them get their book done, right? I'll help them get publicity. Some come in, they're real kind of, I don't have anything. I say, okay, great, let's go get some publicity, and now you're credible, right? So we show them how to do that. And then sometimes I know it's fear of just kind of doing the webinar. So I'll do an interview process with them, kind of an interview Q&A format webinar, which works really well. I'm doing one tonight with a lady, actually, which does work well with them. But I think that the thing that really gets to people the results is, I mean, based on what you're talking about, parameters, is, and this isn't always held up to, but if they already have a list of people, right, that they're, and maybe not in communication with, but have a small audience, at least a small audience of folks.
How do you define small? What's like the threshold for you? What would be like?
Well, and again, I'm still working through that. But the last lady I worked with, she had 8 people show up on her webinar, and one closed at 13,000. Right. So, and then somebody else was actually, closed, but we're just talking about that one. So, I think it's the smallest. And I would just say, look, go grab your business cards, all those contacts, all that stuff you've been doing over the years. Right. And let's just put all that together, your emails you've been sending out, and let's start there first. And so honestly, I don't have the like an exact number, but I guess on average, maybe a few hundred people on the email list.
Right.
To start
Perfect.
with.
That's enough. And you know what I always do, Eric? I like to personify that. Like I look at when you think about, 300 people on an email list, doesn't sound like much when you're thinking, in terms of things, but if you pack 300 people into a community theater that seats 250 people, it's a standing room audience. And you imagine you up on stage talking to a packed house of 300 people. It's the same, you'd be excited about that, right? But you put 300 people in a stadium and it seems so sparse, right? Disappointing. But when you contextualize it, it's the greatest thing. And people often don't revere what they actually have. I mean, even with people, you think about, a lot of times people think that a list of 10,000 is a small list, but you think about 10,000 people in a small arena. I mean, you think about, there's 30, Carnegie Hall seats 3,500 people. But if you told you were speaking to a sold out crowd at Carnegie Hall, that'd be impressive, right? But it's 3,500 people. So, you don't, it's kind of a real interesting contextual thing. And I agree with you that the more people, you don't have to have a huge audience. You got to have a beginning audience, and that could be a few hundred people. So,
I think she started with a list of about 300. I think it grew to about 400 over time. But in that year and a half, she had broke the 6-figure mark. He was, stoked about that. And I was doing like 5 webinars, and then just some of the back end follow up stuff, do normally.
And there's some of the things too. I mean, it depends what the context of the audience is too. It depends if you're looking for people. There was a great podcast. Did you ever listen to the How I Built This podcast with Guy Raz? So he had one episode with Miles Copeland, who was the manager of the police, Stuart Copeland's brother. And he was talking about when they were starting out with the police in England in the mid 70s. He realized, he thought to himself, the number one job of a manager is to, make sure people know your band exists, right? That's the number one thing. And then he realized that there's really it's more important that some people know than others. And the people who really matter, there are the 300 or 400 venue bookers in the UK. The people who book acts for the bars and clubs and venues that play live music. Those 400 people are far more important than the rest of them because they're the doorway to all of the, to a bigger audience. So he took it on himself. He created a magazine that he distributed only to those 400 people. It looked like a real magazine, but he was only speaking to that audience and would put glowing articles about his bands in the magazine. And it was going out to the people, and all of a sudden they would start booking all these bands. And it's pretty funny when you look at, if you're a speaker. I worked with Alex Epstein, who wrote The Moral Case for Fossil Fuel. And he's, big speaker, consultant in the energy field. And when we really thought about it, we looked at the audience, there's really only 250 people that can hire him in North America. And those are the 250 CEOs or, leaders of the 250 largest energy companies in North America. And so we built a strategy around just getting in front of those 250 people. So, so you look at, depends on who you're, whether somebody's trying to be a speaker who gets hired to speak to bigger groups, or somebody who's trying to build their own audience to, to get their message out on their own, that their people are coming to them for the message, And I imagine you work with both.
I do. And as I said, still trying to refine the audience. Sometimes get not caught up, because it's not bad, but depending on how I market the event, or depending on who shows up when I market the event. Some folks are, we're willing, but they just can't make the investment. Right. And then some people figure it out. And then, we kind of move forward with those folks. But again, deciding myself, do I want to go after a particular, instead of it being kind of an open-ended thing and really wanting to really help people. Because the event by itself is really good, and they can really walk away with some good stuff, like whether they invest or not.
How many people come to your event typically?
Yeah, it's limited to 50, just below that.
Perfect. And they're coming from all over?
Yeah. Some people are flown in. It's in Atlanta, but some people are flown in. Most of the people are from Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, but people are definitely coming from New York and Minnesota, other places.
That's awesome. Congratulations. Yeah. So what was on your mind today of, I love talking about all the philosophical things and thinking through structure stuff, but is there, let's make it practical for you here. What would be, kind of what's on your mind of the things that you'd love to solve here?
Yeah. Okay. So I know when people complete the application, it's usually about 40% of those people close on something. And they usually go for the private thing. But again, looking at the event, other ways to fill the room. I've tried radio advertising. That didn't do a thing. Right. But I was testing. I was fine with it. I was testing. Facebook has worked. Eventbrite's worked really well. What works the best is just what I call, a joint venture, somebody to help fill the room up. Anybody moves forward, they get a percentage of that. Yeah. And that usually works the best. But just, playing with other ideas on putting people in the room, I like the 50, folks, but maybe want to expand that a little with some other ideas to put people in.
So work me through let's get some metrics for you here then. So you get 50 people in the room, and you go through the 2-day training, and how many people typically will apply for either the course or working with you one-on-one out of the 50?
We just call it the 50. Trying to do about 20%, and I'm trying to factor. Yeah. Sometimes I have previous students that are coming in too, so they're already part of it. Yeah. But if we say out of 50, 20 of them, so whatever that is, 10, 20%.
Yeah, so that's 40% actually. Yes.
Yeah, it's 40%.
So 40%
that actually complete it. Yeah.
And then about 20 or 30% of those will do one-on-one.
Correct. Well, either the one-on-one or just the private or just the home study version of it.
Okay. And how much is the home study version?
It's $1,500.
Okay.
But it's kind of, it's what's called $1,500.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So this is great. So the bottom line is, and you enjoy doing those events? Love
them, yeah.
Yeah. So if you could do one every month? If you could fill... Okay. Yeah. So there's one possible way. I'm just looking to see what your capacity is for this, right? Okay. Like the only limitation for you is having 50 people willing to come, and you feel like and you're able to do that 4 times a year, you can fill that with 50 people.
Yeah.
Right. So if we could get to where you could fill that 10 or 12 times a year, that would be a good thing. I would say that you're not going to have I look for breakthroughs, right? My whole model is let's look for the breakthrough blueprint here. And, you're not going to have a breakthrough in converting more of the people who are in the room. You're already converting at a pretty high level for what you're doing. For people coming to a free event, for 40% of them to want to continue working with you, and 20 or 30% of those to want to work with you at the highest level, one-on-one, is a great metric. And so, and you've got that dialed in. That's a proven algorithm. If we could just put 50 people in the room, they're going to come out the other. And now it's how do we get more people into the room? So how many people do you have on your list or in your world that how do you invite people to this? How do they get the word that you're doing this event, and how?
Okay.
Yeah.
Last time I ran some Facebook ads were decently Eventbrite. People on that particular list, I also go to my house list, right? But on that particular list, it's right at about 3,000 on that list, roughly.
I mean, this is, Eric, you've got a real substantial thing here. You think about what you're able to do with a list of 3,000 people. Those are people who have, is the entry into your world coming to the event? Is that the first thing that they're doing often? When you say you're running Facebook ads, you're running them in, a radius around Atlanta, or you're running them nationally or in Georgia?
For the event, a radius around Atlanta. And then I have
how far out?
It's right around 25 miles.
Okay. So within a 25-mile radius of Atlanta, what selects how are you picking the people that you're showing the ad to?
Yeah, what was it? It was like Toastmasters.
Okay.
Public speaking, entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Some of the other influencers they might be following, right? Yeah, with those types of things there.
And tell me about the ad that you're running. Tell me about what would show up in my news feed here.
What did it say? A couple of them. Just trying to discover how to become a paid speaker, right? So a free event, discover how to become a paid speaker. Some copy.
Is it a video or a static? Static ad. So free event, and you put the date on there, and is it come to the event? Is that the offer of the ad, basically?
Well, no, not really. So the ad is just to get them to the website, and then the website gives them a little bit more detail with the date and all of that type of stuff.
Okay.
So I want to at least capture their information if they are interested, and then follow up with them, and then tell them all the other details.
Perfect. So when they opt in, is the opt-in that they're opting in to come to the event or to get more information about the event, or what am I trading my name and email for?
It's to come to the event.
Okay. And so how much does it cost you to get an event registration?
I think on like I said, I just tested Facebook ads for the first time the last time I did it.
Yeah.
I think I invested maybe $1,500, $2,000 in that range. Some other stuff I was playing with, but in that. I'm sorry, but event registration, I think about 200 people signed up from that. So whatever that is, I had the numbers, but whatever that is divided by we'll call it 1,500.
So about $50, let's say, per registration. Yeah. And then about 25% of them come to the event. Is that the?
Roughly, yeah. Yeah. Pretty much everybody from Facebook came last time.
Or was there, so did people come from your list as well? So it wasn't the 50 people in the event weren't all from Facebook. Is that what you're saying?
Well, what's interesting is last time, I think I had 2 students come from my list because I'm kind of showing them behind the scenes. There was just a couple from the list last time. Facebook and Eventbrite, with vast majority coming from Facebook.
Okay.
Because each time I kind of test something different.
Yeah.
That makes,
Okay. So I think that the first thing that I look at is I think there's a big opportunity for you to do what I call separating the compelling from the convincing. And that when you're running an ad to a cold audience and your offer is to come to a live event, what is required of them is that they live within 25 miles of Atlanta. They're interested in public speaking. They're willing to come to an event, and they're available on the dates that the event is, right? That's all requirements in order for somebody to opt in, right? To register for the event. And if we look at it as concentric circles there, you've got the whole audience of people, of everybody who lives in the 25-mile bubble there, who's interested in public speaking and whatever other selects you've made, that audience. And then you've got the bullseye there, concentric circle of the 50 people that come to the event that say, yes, I'd like to do it. And they're a subset of the people immediately around that, the 200 people that say, yeah, I'll come, but only the 25% actually end up at the event, right? So you've got 200 there. But what you're missing out on is the bigger pool of people who are interested in public speaking and interested in making money with their, by talking or having a message, but they're not available to come to those dates, or they're not. If you had a book that somebody could raise their hand, because you've got what we call invisible prospects. You can't get a list of people who have a dream of being a public speaker, right? So you're getting the ones who it's a pretty high bar that they have to jump over, that they're committing 2 days to come to something. Do you do it on a weekend, or do you do it on
a weekend? Yes.
Yeah. So everybody, if they're working or whatever, they could come on the weekend and do it. But I believe that you could get 3 to 5 times more people who would download a book than would register to come to the thing. But you could immediately invite the people that download the book on the confirmation page on the next thing to come to the workshop. So the people who would come are still in there. They're a subset of the people, but what you're doing is you're getting a bigger audience of people. It would be very valuable for you if we could just wave a magic wand and get everybody in the bubble who's interested in being a public speaker, getting paid for speaking. If they would jump on your list, that would be a valuable thing, because now you get a chance to convince them over time, to educate and motivate them, right? That you've got now, instead of you're adding 200 people, what if you could add 1,000 people for that same $2,000, and I think you could do even more than that, if you could get those leads for, let's even say $10 a lead, if you spent $2,000 on those ads, and you could get, you get more people that way.
Right.
Yeah. It's it's a really interesting thing when you start thinking about what you could do there. Because now you're building this list in Atlanta, or in the 25-mile bubble there, of people who have raised their hand and said, I'm interested in public speaking. And all you would have to do is you do basically a book version of all the information that you used to get them to want to come to the workshop. They're still, you know what I mean? What are you calling the workshop, or what are the words that you're using to describe what they're going to get? If you put that on a book cover, if you came up with a title, that the promise of what you're making for people who come to the event, that would be a very valuable list for you. If you could, instead of getting 200 of them, we could get 1,000 of them, or get whatever.
Okay.
Now
So you're saying, okay. Oh, well, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, now you've got more time now to demonstrate, and I will talk a little bit about what your conversion process is. Like, how often do you communicate with the people on your list? And do you ever have a period where someone who opted in to come to the last event but didn't make it then decides, oh, I'm going to come to the next one? Do you ever have people?
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure you have people like that, right? So you're just getting people in the thing and you're percolating them that way. But how often do you communicate to the 3,000?
5 days a week. So I have the emails, I call it Eric's Escapade, reality show delivered to your inbox type thing.
Yeah.
And so, just Monday through Friday. And it's usually tips. And then once the event's coming around, I start, start that process. Some links to attend, yes.
Oh, that's great. So you've got all the ingredients here, Eric. We just need a little bit of a different packaging, a different wrapper for some of it, that if we should, imagine if instead of just doing it, thinking of it as a wave to promote an event, you start doing, what if you were open every day and you could start gathering people, who are interested in public speaking, more anytime. It's not just a push for the event, but you get somebody. We also have to say, listen, people always focus, and I'm sure you've heard it said, that people have to know you, like you, trust you, that you have to, but they think about it as one thing. Know you, like you, trust you. They read it as one thing, right? That's the destination. And in my mind, they don't properly revere the jump from not knowing you to knowing you. That when somebody, and more importantly, you not knowing them, there are probably people walking around the 25-mile bubble there that have a dream of being a public figure, and they don't even know that you exist. And you don't know that they exist. But if you did know, you'd be a blessing to them. You'd be something that would be, and it would be the best thing that could happen to them, is to get to know you, right? You're the guy equipped to help them do that. So finding people, who have that dream is a big thing. And so separating the convincing them to come to an event from compelling them to let you know that they've got the dream. That's that's a bigger thing, that now, rather than just having to show ads to the whole, all of the Facebook there, or all the people that you've selected, you now get 5 times a week to get in front of people who are interested in that dream.
Okay.
Because they asked for a book called, what's the title of your workshop?
Well, Speaking for Newbies. So that's
newbies. Okay.
Yeah. Speaking for Newbies. Yeah.
So now, if that were, imagine people who are willing to come to an event called Speaking for Newbies would be super excited if they could download a book called Speaking for Newbies.
Yep.
That's for me.
You're right.
Yeah. So if you just had a book cover and, a simple way, and it doesn't have to be, this is one of the things, is that when you're using a book for lead generation, it doesn't have to be a big, people think about a book as, this big 250-page thing that you spent a year working on and pouring your heart and soul into. But the reality is, the only thing that's important when you're using a book for marketing is you've got to have a book. You got to have a title that as soon as they see it, they say, that's the book for me. And you got to have a way for them to get it, right? Go here or just click. We use the lead ads on Facebook, so they never even have to leave Facebook to opt in. And we get the lowest cost per conversion there. So, what people don't know when they see that book, they make their decision 100% on, is this something that I want? There's a book that's available for me to get it, and all I have to do is click this download link. That's very friction-free for me to do that, right? But what they don't know or care about is whether that book is 50 pages or 250 pages. Doesn't make a difference in the response rate. Doesn't matter how long it took you to write it or how carefully you crafted the third sentence of, chapter 3, that you rolled it around in your mind and it's a masterful paragraph. It doesn't matter. What's the most important, the only thing that makes the boat go faster is the title that you chose and the fact that you are calling out your ideal prospects. And, in 50 pages, it's the equivalent of, I think about it as like, a webinar in a bookinar kind of thing. Like, that's our idea. I own a company called 90-Minute Books, and we help people do those kind of books that we set it up so that you imagine that we're going to interview you for an hour. And the idea is that everybody in the audience is your ideal prospect. And we've got 1 hour to educate them and get them excited about coming to your event or doing your home study program or working with you one-on-one. That's the idea, right? Is what would you, and I'm sure you do webinar. You say you do a webinar that converts people into coming to the event. That's what do you call the webinar Speaking for Newbies? Is that so that message? I
do, yeah. Speaking for Newbies,
That message is right on, right? Like it's a proven message. You've proven it because you get people to come to your event. And then when they're there, they sign up to work with you. So I think that's what it is. Let's keep that open every day. Let's keep gathering people that are speaking for newbies. Would you consider driving up to Charlotte or flying up to Charlotte to do the same type of thing?
Oh, yeah.
So you think about if you're doing 4 in Atlanta, then maybe you do 2 in Charlotte, or you come down to Orlando and do 1 in Orlando, and you maybe do 1 in Nashville or whatever. You just look at how can we expand this bubble of the people. But I think if you're doing it by, I think if you did it, you could expand to a national audience, even just doing it by Zoom. If you portioned out if you did, instead of a 2-day live event, you did a 4-week session of, 2-hour sessions on Zoom.
Right.
That could be a really good thing where people have spaced learning in a way that leads to the next thing.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. So use the book, invite them to the webinar or, live event, wherever they happen to be located.
Yeah.
Or in Atlanta.
Yeah, as soon as they opt in, that's really what now you're in conversation with someone who is your ideal prospect, right? Certainly they've jumped through some hoops to get to that point. I mean, they live in that area. They saw your ad. They resonated with the Speaking for Newbies and want to know how to become a speaker and get paid. And they left voluntarily their name and their contact information for you. Now you've got you've got a great audience. I always say, imagine to people if the opt-in button was a magic portal that brought people to your office. And as soon as they press download, they get magically sucked into the computer and they pop out at your office. They poke their head in the door and they say, "Hey, Eric, I'm here about the Speaking for Newbies book."
Right.
How would you have that conversation with them? That's where your conversion process starts, thinking about it one-on-one like that. And if you could have people, if you could have 10, 20, 50 people a day knocking on your door like that, it's pretty exciting.
That's a game changer. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, but they're not necessarily related to that particular topic. And I was going to use those as lead gen, but like you said, make it related to
the whole
exact topic. Yeah.
You got to start with what's the promised land, because ultimately you want to have on the cover, Speaking for Newbies, and then, your subhead would kind of lead to the journey of where this goes kind of thing, right? How to get paid, how to get booked, how to get paid, how to get, back. That kind of thing is, if somebody's raising their hand, that's the destination that they're interested in. And that's a through line all the way through your, watch my emails every day, come on the webinars that I do, or come to a live event, and that pathway to, I can get you to that promised land, and you're demonstrating it all the way. It's kind of a very cool thing. Do you, in your emails and stuff, do you feature, a lot of times in our real estate world, I'll call them field reports, where I'm showing and highlighting people who have had success using one of our programs. So if every time somebody books their first paid gig kind of thing, or the first time they make money, get paid for speaking, if you're, celebrating that and highlighting them, and, almost like if you set up this like rite of passage type of thing, right? Like where you're documenting it as you go. Almost like American Express has the, member since 1997 or whatever, that if somebody's like, I got paid in 32 days or in 40 days or 90 days or whatever the thing is, that you're celebrating their success and doing it. I coined a phrase I call it contentimonials, where you're unpacking the lessons of what it took for them to get that result, which is far more powerful than just a testimonial of somebody saying, Eric's great. He really, where it's all about you. That's not helpful to anybody. What's helpful is the shining the light on the path that they took to get there.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I highlight people, but it's more so, I share a little bit, but it, maybe what they made or here's what they did. But yeah, if you're 1,000% correct. If I highlight that more, that path, that's fantastic.
And then the only other thing, and I haven't seen any of your emails, but one of the things that I would love to see for you is that every time you send out an email, there's an opportunity for somebody to take the next step, and so you look at that where, if you get my emails, I send out 3 or 4 emails a week, and every time at the very bottom of the email, it's how you got here, is the offer of plus, whenever you're ready, here's 4 ways I can help you, is be a guest on More Cheese Less Whiskers. And that's how you ended up here, I'm sure.
Right.
That's part of the thing that I always look at it, that I don't want to necessarily have to wait until, your next event in 90 days to start helping somebody get the result. If there's a way to create it so that there's an opportunity for it to be now for somebody, because the only 2 time frames there are is now and not now. And, so I always want it to be, the only time somebody could take action is now. And so I always like for it to be an opportunity every time I communicate with someone, for it to be now for them, that they're ready. That's why I always say, whenever you're ready, because I'm not trying to convince somebody to do something. It's essentially saying, listen, I'm standing by to help you. We're ready whenever you are. All you have to do is one of these things,
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. That's one thing I don't do enough is I don't want to really call it an offer, but I guess doing more offers in the email. But yeah, I've seen also learned it from Dave D when he started doing it.
Yeah, Dave he's come to a couple of my events. Dave's Dave's got his super signatures in every email there. Yeah. He was living up there with you. Now he's in Florida here, Marco Island. Yeah.
He just moved. Yeah. Keeps talking about all the Italian food. I said, Dave, I got to go down to Florida now to get it. So,
that's funny. Well, I mean, Eric, what's your takeaway here? That went fast.
Yeah. Well, the big takeaway really is using the book, being congruent with the book, and using that as, open 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
lead generator. And I have a video right now that I'm converting. It's the 25-minute, I call it my super simple seminar. So it's a 25-minute seminar, but converting that into a book. So that's happening right now, actually.
Perfect. That's exactly what I would do. And then you still, you've got the book, but nobody's going to connect the dots. You could still, because some people like to read, some people like to watch, some people like to just, along with the book, you could get people to watch the video,
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, no, so that's the big takeaway. And just like you said, being open 24 hours a day, because eventually I will take this around the country. And then I still go back and forth in my head. Do I just want to do it online or, but I do like the in-person, hands, kissing babies type of thing. And
great things, one of the great opportunities you have when you're doing live events is to build audience in the places you want to go, so pre-COVID, and I'll get back to it next year, but, for 6 years, I did my Breakthrough Blueprint events. I do 3-day live events. And so I would do every summer, I would do a summer tour, and most of the events I do in Orlando all winter. But then in the summer, I would do Toronto, London, Amsterdam, and Sydney, Australia. So every year I would go to those places where I love to spend time, but it's like you're having a great experience. Like I love doing the events. I'm sure you love doing your events, but would it be great, if you could go and do those events and extend your time and spend some time in those places where you go, but you're getting paid to do it as well. It's kind of that's a fun way to think about setting up your calendar. What places do you want to frequent? Do you want to go back to San Diego? A couple of times a year, you do an event in San Diego or do in San Francisco or Las Vegas or whatever build hubs wherever you want to do the events.
Right. Yeah, no, you're great. Yeah. Quick question. I don't know if we have.
We got time.
With the lead gen ads on Facebook, which I've used, and they worked and seem to not work. Do you find that in conversion ads, it's pretty much the same type of person, the same individual?
Yeah, you're fishing in the same pond, right? It's just a mechanism. I find it, that you're going to the max. I want to lean on the side of getting more leads. I want to get the maximum. If somebody's willing to give their email address, then I know that there's a good chance that if they're in my pond and they're around other, we're getting to nurture them and, feed them, and they get to be in that world and start to see. You're emailing them 5 times a week. They're seeing other people who are getting the results. What's going to happen is somebody, let's say 90 days from now, somebody is going to, come to your next event. They get out of the gate really quickly and they get their paid thing. That whole thing could happen in 60 days kind of thing, right? Go from, I saw the face, and when you're telling the field report, they're going to say, I saw the post come through on Facebook. I decided to come to the event and I just loved everything about it. And then I dove right in. I worked with Eric one-on-one, and within 30 days I had my first webinar and I got paid for the thing. Now that all happens in that 30 or 60 days. Somebody who opted in for the book 9 months ago or a year ago is going to hear, they've been just lurking and watching and not diving in, and they're going to see that somebody just like them came in, took action, got the result, all in the time that they've been sitting around watching. It's a big motivator. It's a big encouragement for people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I'd love it. That'd be great to get your, take your list from 3,000 to 10,000. And now that'd be something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I'm definitely going to implement it. Yeah. I know you say, just let us know how it goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll definitely do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, Eric. It's been a delight. I think you got a great opportunity there.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for all the other stuff you do. I don't know when I started following you and watching your stuff, but I love marketing, Focus Finder, all the stuff. I don't know when, but it's been a while. So I really appreciate this and everything else you do. So
awesome. Thanks, Eric.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good day.